Well ahead of the economic crisis, the world experienced various financial and ecological shocks. As the G20 has drilled into the regulatory gaps that have brought about the crisis, many challenges remain. In this video, we've asked participants of the CIGI-Chatham House workshop on global economic governance in a world of crisis to react to what a wider agenda for the G20 should look like as the immediacy of the crisis subsides.
Well, the rhetoric rather is still there, but I don't think anybody believes it. The lack of political will, particularly in the United States, I think, but it's not just the US, but the US is the essential power in this. That lack of political will is quite palpable. It's very clear that trade is low down on the Obama administration's radar screen until they fix other higher profile issues, particularly healthcare, the conflict in Afghanistan, a whole range of other domestic issues. They won't turn to trade. Instead, there seems to be a push rather to, in a sense, externalize the demand problem in the United States by promoting exports. In a sense, a return to the 1980s scenario. So rather than emphasizing the Doha Round, bringing that to a conclusion, the domestic politics in the US are just not conducive to it. And so as a result, the round will not advance until such time as the Obama administration is able to sort these issues out and elevate it up the radar screen. Personally, I'm not hugely optimistic that they will be able to do that, in which case the Doha Round is set to drift on until somebody kills it off. Everybody just goes back home. Yeah, in a sense there is a stalemate, in the sense that there are pretty firmly entrenched positions across a range of issues and a lack of movement in the main centres of economic power. So yes, there is that stalemate. How does it reverberate into other forums? Well, I'm not sure it does, to be honest. I mean, anecdotally, I guess it reverberates into the G20 framework, and mostly through the prism of protectionism. But as we know, the G20 members routinely engage in their own rhetoric. They say protectionism is bad, no new measures, we must roll back existing measures. They step out of the room and the measures continue. So if that's a sign of the seriousness with which they take the trade agenda, then we must know that Doha is probably not going to feature that highly on the radar screen.
First of all, I think China definitely will play a very important role, in any form of the future international monetary system. With a very strong it is a financial base, and as well as a very strong political will. China, I think, after this moment, recognize that. We were not the part of writing the rules of the Bretton Woods system. For this, after this crisis, China definitely will work with other countries to work together in writing the rules. And I think we recognized the significance of being part of the new system. That's a very, very, very important signal China has sent to the world. Secondly, China, how do China define its role in the new international monetary system? I would like to say China is neither is a status quo is a country, nor a revolutionary country regarding the monetary system. China will be a moderate and realistic reformer of the current monetary system. Okay, that means China will collaborate with all the others, okay, all the stakeholders to strike a more balanced structured, okay, international monetary system.
Well, this is a very important question. I think we chair the working group 4, which is focused on the reform of the multilateral development bank, the MDBs, which is basically reform of the World Bank and also related to the Asian Development Bank. And most of the issue covered in the working group 4 is issue related to the development issue, like poverty, food issues, issue of employment. So this put Indonesia fits on this context of G20. Because when we co-chaired this working group 4 together with France, a lot of issue related to issues in the developing countries, the emerging economies, is put on the table. And I think we've been quite successful because at the meeting in London, they adopted about $100 billion money pouring through the multilateral development bank. It has been very useful. And if you look at the issue of the development agenda, it's also appeared in the statement of the communique. So I think this is the way that Indonesia play its role as a developing countries, but still have a lot of problem of related to racial poverty.
Yes, this is a good question. I mean, both on the sort of diplomatic process, but also the substance. You do see, I think, some sort of loss of momentum, and I think some of this is inevitable. I mean, these are technical questions. The FSB, the IMF has to do sort of reporting activities. They have to do sort of work that gets a consensus among a disparate set of countries. But at the same time, I think it's also sort of perhaps a little loss of momentum in terms of looking to see what the agenda should be, I think, to expand the capacity and expand the scope of the G20. What is interesting, though, is that you see a number of countries buying into the G20, not just the typical countries that one would have anticipated, the G7, the G5 of the larger emerging countries, but also sort of a new sort of tier of middle powers. And I think here we've had representatives from Korea, we've had representatives from Indonesia. Both of those countries, I think, are indicating that countries probably in the second tier in some ways have capacity for innovation. And it's going to be interesting as the G20 moves from Canada to Korea to see whether that momentum can be enhanced in again, an unanticipated way. Korea, of course, is a country that has a reputation for certainly organization and developmental state, but in terms of this type of ambitious diplomatic work, it's certainly going to be a game that we should watch.